today we'll be doing 3.3. We'll specifically be talking about parallel lines and perpendicular lines. Let's start with some definitions in your foldable. This should be in the front of your foldable. Let's start with parallel lines. If two lines are parallel, then their slopes are the same. In other words, they're equal. If the slopes of two lines are equal or the same, then the lines are parallel. It means the same thing as the previous statement, but the other way around. Okay, so we can also say that if two lines are equal with the slopes, then that means the lines are called also parallel. Any two vertical or horizontal lines are parallel. Meaning if I have horizontal lines from left to right, this is how they look like. If they're parallel, they're never touching. They're left to right. And if they're vertical, up or down, they are never touching as well. They're side by side, but never touching. That is what we say parallel lines are. Ok, para la definición de líneas paralelas, lo importante aquí de saber es que cuando hay dos líneas paralelas es porque tenemos los slopes de estas líneas que son iguales, ok. So, entre las dos líneas el slope debe ser igual para llamarlos paralelos. Okay, perpendicular lines, some definitions for this one. If two non-vertical lines are perpendicular, then the slopes are negative reciprocals. Okay, so the important thing to know about perpendicular lines is that their slopes are negative reciprocals. Okay, so what is a word negative and what does reciprocal means? We have that right here to kind of define it. Negative means that the fractions are opposite. That's what it means. So in the fractions, the signs are opposite. So one should be positive and one should be negative. Okay, so between these two slopes from these two different lines, we are going to know that they're perpendicular because you see different signs, opposite signs, and you'll see that the fractions are the flip of each other. Okay, so reciprocal meaning the fractions are the flip. Okay, and I have two lines here because I'm going to do two different fractions and saying that they are negative reciprocals. So if I have 3 over 4 and it's positive, the reciprocal of that fraction, let's flip 4 and 3. So 4 goes at the top, 3 goes at the bottom. We're flipping the fraction and we're doing different signs. So now this one's negative. So again, different signs, opposite signs, and they are the flip of the fraction of each other. Okay, so in perpendicular lines, your slopes look different. They should not be the same, but they need to be negative reciprocals. Okay, so they have to follow these two different guidelines. Opposite sides and the fractions should be flipped. Let's fill in the last part. Any horizontal line and vertical line are perpendicular. Okay, so if we have a vertical and a horizontal line, one that goes up and down and one straight left to right, and they're going directly through, you'll see those 90-degree boxes saying that they are perpendicular. Ok, rápidamente, ¿qué es lo importante de saber de líneas perpendiculares? Líneas perpendiculares se ven como la foto que tenemos ahí abajito. Se ven como que hay un cruce, ¿ok? Forman un X estas dos líneas, ¿ok? Visualmente podemos verlas e identificarlas, o son líneas perpendiculares porque están tocando. Pero, ¿qué tal que no tenemos el visual y solamente tenemos los slopes? ¿Cómo sabemos si son líneas perpendiculares o no? Hay dos requisitos, ¿ok? Dice negative reciprocal, ¿ok? So tienen que ser dos diferentes requisitos. El primer requisito, que los signos sean diferentes, ¿ok? Signos, uno tiene que ser un positivo y el otro negativo. Los signos definitivamente tienen que ser diferentes. Si no son signos diferentes, no son perpendiculares. ¿Ok? La otra cosa que tienen que satisfacer también estos slopes es que sean opuestos, ¿ok? Que las fracciones sean opuestas. Por eso cuando yo hice mis ejemplos, estos dos slopes son perpendiculares porque está el cambio de signos, o hay diferentes signos, y hay la fracción que se hizo opuesta. O sea, hay un flip. Cambiaron las fracciones. So, vamos a ver slopes visuales y tratar de buscar si son líneas paralelas o perpendiculares. So, voy a ir adentro en su papelito. All right, so let's look at number 1 first. The question is, are the lines A and B, so we can see two different lines there. The question is, are they parallel? Okay, so let's look at the lines. Let me get my highlighter right here. So I have line A right here, and then I have line B in blue right here. All right, so I can see that they gave us 2 points in each line. They won't always be this nice, but for today, for just the purpose of learning how to know if they're parallel or not, we gave you 2 points in each line that you could use. And we also labeled what the order pair is for each point to make it easier on you guys. Well, if I know that two lines are parallel, remember, that means they have same slopes. So if they have the same slope, we can say they're parallel. But we need to figure out each slope of each line first. So slope A. Slope A has a point -1, right here, -1, 4, and then the other point is 2, 2. So I'm going to write them down here, -1, 4, and then we have 0.2, 2. To find the slope between these 2 points that were given, I'm going to use the formula m equals y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. The slope formula that we've learned before. Okay, so the 2 different points, let me label my points. So this is going to be x1, y1, and this is x2, and this is y2. All right, let's fill in our parts for our formula. It's going to be 2 minus 4, y2 minus y1. In the bottom of the fraction, we're doing x2 minus x1. So it's going to be 2 minus, because the formula already has that minus in there, that negative. And x1 is -1. So you will have double negative there. Because we have a double negative, what I'm going to do is just write a positive. Negative next to a negative turns into a positive. All right, and we need our final answer. Let's pull in our calculator. Okay, and let's see. Oop. What's happening? Trying to move this out of the way, and I can't seem to do that. What's happening? Oh my gosh. Okay, I moved it out of the way. So it's 2 minus 4, 2 plus 1. Alpha y equals 1. Oops, I wrote the wrong thing. Alpha y equals 1. Okay, so for this top part of your fraction, we're going to do 2 minus 4. And in the bottom, since we have that positive, it's 2 plus 1. And I get negative 2 over 3. Negative 2 over 3. So this is the first slope. This is my first slope for line A. Let's find the second slope for line B and see if they're the same. If they're the same, then I can say they are parallel. All right, so for slope of line B, we're using negative 6, 2, and we're using 0.3, negative 4. So let's write them down here in the bottom. So this is x1, y1. This is x2, y2. Let's fill in what we know for our formula. Y2 minus y1. So negative 4 goes first. The formula already has a negative, and we have a 2 for y1. That should be your top for your slope formula. The bottom should be 3 minus, because it already has it in the formula, whatever x1 is. In this case, it's negative 6. I do have a double negative in the bottom of my fraction, so I'm just going to write a plus. Okay, I'm going to pull in my calculator and write this down. Okay, so alpha y equals 1. Negative 4 minus 2. 3 plus 6. Enter. So I get negative 2 over 3. If I compare negative 2 over 3 with the one that I have for the slope of line A, well, they're the same. Negative 2 over 3 and negative 2 over 3, same slope for both of these parts. So I can say that the lines, yes, they are parallel. All of this work just to say yes, okay? So you need to prove to me that these lines are parallel by finding the slopes. Okay. What I want you to do now is try number 2 on your own. It's a very similar problem like number 1. It says, are the lines A and B parallel? So we have line A here. Oops, and I need my highlighter. This is line A, and this is line B. Okay, I want you to pause the video and give them time to do this number 2 on their own and see what they can do. Okay, a few minutes is what they need to fill this one out, right? They're going to find the slope of line A first, the slope of line B, and then tell me yes or no, are these parallel? Okay, pause the video and let them work for a few minutes and see what they come up with. Okay, and then I'll tell you the answers for number 2. All right. What you should have for number 2 is, well, for slope of line A, first of all, we're dealing with points 1, comma 5, and the other point is negative 4, comma negative 6. Okay, so because you always go from left to right, negative 4, negative 6 is the first point, and 1, comma 5 is going to be my second point. So I'm going to say this is a x1 and this is y1. This is x2 and this is y2. Again, Why? Because I always move from left to right. So the left point for line A is -4, -6. The one most to the right is 1, comma 5. All right, let's fill it in our little fraction here. What should go first is what should go first is 5 minus -6. That's the first part. In the bottom, you should have 1 minus -4. And what's going to happen is both of these are going to have a change of sign. All right, and when you put this in your calculator, it should give you 11/5, and it's a positive 11/5. All right, let's do slope of line B. We're using point -1, -5, and 3, comma 3. So let's write them down. -1, comma -5, and we're doing 3, comma 3. So we have x1, y1, x2, y2. All right, and let's fill in the slope. 3 minus -5 should be at the top, and 3 minus -1 at the bottom. And we have a double negative, so they actually turn into pluses. Your calculator should give you back that m equals 8/4, or it'll just give you 2. One of those 2 is fine. I'm just going to say m equals 2. Now, if I compare the line if I compare the slope of line A, which is 11/5, and the slope of line B, which is m equals 2, they're completely different. They're not the same. So because they're not the same, they are not parallel. So are they parallel? No. No. Okay. All right, for example 3, the question is not if they're parallel, but if they are perpendicular. Now, remember, if they are perpendicular, I need my pen here. If they are perpendicular, it means they have a negative reciprocal. Okay, it should have opposite signs and different, like a flip of the fraction. Okay, they should be just completely different. Okay, and we're gonna try to identify that. So for line A, let's highlight line A. Line A, oh, and I need my highlighter. Line A right here, -5, -1, 3, comma 3. That's the points we're dealing with. And then for line B, we're dealing with points -5, comma 5, and -1, -5. Okay. So again, the question, are they perpendicular? We still need to look for both of the slopes and then try to compare and see what is happening here, if it's a yes or if it's a no. So let's start with line A. So we have -5, comma -1 as the first point, and this is x1, y1. My second point is 3, comma 3, and this is x2, y2. All right, so my formula says m equals, and let's plug it in. Okay, so when we plug in, it should be 3 minus -1 if we're following the slope formula. And it's 3 minus -5 in the bottom. Okay, remember, y2 minus y1 over x2 minus whatever is x1. We have double negatives here, so these two negatives will change to positive. Same thing in the bottom. Let's put it in the calculator, and when you put it in your calculator, again, make sure you're putting it in fraction mode in your calculator. And I have it right there on the side, my calculator. Let's use it. So alpha y equals 1. It's 3 plus 1 in the top, 3 plus 5 in the bottom. Enter. 1/2. Okay. So my m equals 1/2. And I'm boxing my answer. Okay, so we have the first slope done. Let's do slope of line B, and we'll do that in blue. Again, you're always moving from left to right with your points, just so you have that general order in your mind. So if I go from left to right in the blue line, -5, 5 is the one most to the left. So that one should be my first point. And then -1, -5 should be my second point. So x1, y1, x2, x2, and then we have y2. Okay, so I'm going to do the slope formula. M equals, the top should be y2, which is -5, minus whatever y1 is. In this case, it's just a +5. For the bottom, it should be x2 minus x1. So -1 minus whatever x1 is. In this case, it's -5. And I see a double negative, so I'm going to go ahead and change it already to a positive. All right, let's put this in our calculator and see what we get. Alpha y equals 1 gives you your fraction mode. -5 minus 5 is at the top. Let me go down and write -1 plus 5. Enter. And it generates -5 over 2. Perfect. So it equals -5 over 2. So we have both of our slopes. One thing for sure that I do see is that they have opposite signs. They do. So at the top here, I'm going to write for perpendicular. Well, I know it has to have two things, okay? Not just one of the things. They must have two of the things. They have to have opposite signs, okay? And they do, right? First thing, it's all good. The second thing, they should have flip of the fractions. So opposite fractions. The top and the bottom should be kind of flipped in the other fraction, but that's not happening. In the first slope, I have 1 over 2. In the other slope, I have 5 over 2, okay? In my slope for line A, I don't see a 5 anywhere there. In the slope for line B, I don't see a 1 at the top or the bottom. I see a 5 and I see a 2. Okay, so we do not have the flip of the fractions. That one is missing, okay, is out. They must have both of these things true. And because one of them is not true, I'm going to say no. They are not perpendicular. Both of these things have to be true. So no. Ok, para número 3, lo voy a explicar un poquito en español. Muy similar a ejemplo 1 y 2, pero yo esta vez estoy buscando si son líneas perpendiculares, sí o no. Voy a hacer lo mismo que hice para ejemplo 1 y 2, buscar esos slopes usando the slope formula. So, usando la fórmula de slope, estoy buscando la línea roja, cuál es su slope y cuál es el slope de la línea azul. Usé los puntos que me dieron ahí, que me generaron, y así busqué mi slope. Acuérdense que el slope formula dice y2 menos lo que sea y1. So ya lleva ese menos ya incorporado en su fórmula. Abajo de la fracción de la fórmula es x2 menos lo que sea x1, ¿ok? So hay veces que tienen doble negativo y lo tienen que cambiar a positivo. Por eso me ven que a veces cambio mi resultado a positivo, arriba o abajo de la fracción. Para la línea A, pueden ver que yo cambié a cada partecita de arriba y de abajo a positivo tenía doble negativo. Ok, so encontré los slopes, 1/2 para línea A, el otro slope para línea B es negativo 5/2. Mi pregunta es si son perpendicular o no. Ya que tengo los slopes encontrados, hay dos cosas si son perpendiculares que tienen que satisfacer, ¿ok? Para saber si son perpendicular o no, es más difícil si son paralelo o no, ¿ok? Cuando tú buscas si dos líneas son paralelas, lo único que tienes que ver es si son los signos son iguales, si la fracción es igual o el número es igual. Si son igualitos, podemos decir que sí son paralelos. Pero cuando hablamos de perpendicular, hay dos cosas que tienen que pasar, ¿ok? Los signos tienen que ser opuestos. So, uno tiene que ser negativo y uno tiene que ser positivo. La segunda cosa que tiene que satisfacer es que las fracciones sean opuestas también. O sea, que lo de arriba y lo de abajo sean opuestos de las fracciones o los números sean opuestos. En mi caso aquí, yo busco estas dos diferentes cosas para decir si son perpendiculares. Entonces, sí hay signos opuestos. Uno es negativo, otro es positivo. Pero lo que no satisface es que no sean fracciones opuestas. No sea un flip de las fracciones, ¿ok? Para mi primera slope es 1/2. Okay, yo no veo un 5 en ninguna parte ahí. Y en el slope para la línea B tengo negativo 5/2. So, tengo un 5 y tengo un 2. No tengo en ninguna parte un 1. ¿Okay? Tienen diferentes números. No son perpendiculares. ¿Okay? No hay ese flip de fracción. No hay ese switch. ¿Okay? So, porque una de las partes no fue satisfacida, voy a decir que no. No son perpendiculares. Las dos cosas tienen que ser verdad. Okay, I want you to try example 4 on your own. Quiero que traten ejemplo 4 solos, a ver qué pueden hacer. Y luego pueden checar sus respuestas cliqueando otra vez a empezar el video. So, tómense el momento, chequen sus respuestas. All right, you should have something similar along the lines for the slope of line A. You should have m equals -3. And for slope of line B, m equals 1/3. Now, let's check if they are perpendicular or not. Remember, two different things need to be satisfied. Opposite signs and the fractions should be opposite. Or you should have like opposite numbers. So, opposite signs. Well, one's -3, the other one's positive 1/3. So, different signs, opposite signs. That's good. Now, do we have flip of the fractions? Well, I don't have a fraction for -3, but if I did have a fraction for -3, it would be -3/1, right? When you put anything over 1, it's the same whole number, okay? It's just it's like in fraction mode, okay? If you put any number over 1, it's the same thing. It just is as a fraction. So if I put -3/1, now we have it as a fraction. Now we can kind of compare. Well, I can see that 3 is at the top and 1 is in the bottom for slope line A. And for slope line B, it's the opposite. Okay, there's a flip. 1 is at the top now and 3 is in the bottom. Because there's this flip that I'm talking about, both of these things are satisfied now. So are they perpendicular? It's a yes. Okay, it's a yes. Ok, lo único que voy a aclarar que a lo mejor no pudieron entender es por qué el -3 lo pude cambiar a ser -3/1 para poder comparar y ver si hay un flip de fracción. Acuérdense que pueden poner cualquier número sobre 1 y lo conviertes en fracción. Y es lo mismo, no estás cambiando el número. Es solamente en modo fracción. So, -3 es lo mismo que -3/1. No más que -3/1 está en modo fracción. ¿Okay? ¿Por qué lo quiero en modo fracción? Porque lo puedo comparar con el slope de línea B. Y puedo ver que hay no nomás signos opuestos, ¿ok? También hay el flip de la fracción. O sea que el 3 y el 1 cambian de posición, ¿ok? Y eso se llama flip de fracción. Ah, entonces se cambian de posición. Las dos cosas aquí están satisfacidas. Hay signos opuestos. Hay flip de la fracción. Y digo sí, sí es perpendicular. Okay, so for number 5, this last question, I'm not gonna do B. I'm gonna skip that one. I don't really care for B, but I'm gonna do A and C. Let's see what's going on. The question is, are these lines parallel, perpendicular, or neither? Those are your three options. Okay, you can look at the equations given, and you need to identify where the slope is. Well, remember, slope is always in front of your x. So my slope for this line is negative 1 over 2. And the slope for this second line is also negative 1 over 2. We have the same slope, right? So now they didn't give me pictures, they didn't give me graphs, they give me the equations, and it's a little bit easier to tell, okay? I can see that in front of x, I have the same number with the same sign. So same slope, these are actually parallel, not perpendicular, they are parallel. Ok, para número 5 tengo ejemplo A y tengo ejemplo C que voy a hacer. Para ejemplo A, la pregunta es si las líneas son paralelas, perpendiculares o no son nada, ¿ok? Son tus tres opciones. Lo que tengo que hacer es comparar los slopes. No me dieron gráfico esta vez, lo que me dieron fueron ecuaciones, ¿ok? Acuérdense que yo ya les había enseñado que en una ecuación el slope siempre va a ser enfrente de x, ¿ok? Siempre está enfrente de x el slope, que representa m. So, yo en mis dos ecuaciones, mis dos líneas que tengo aquí, para ejemplo A, busqué x y enfrente de x me da el número y el signo. So, para la primera línea es negativo 1 sobre 2. Para la segunda línea, para mi segunda ecuación es negativo 1 sobre 2. Es igual, ¿ok? Entonces tienen el mismo slope, el mismo m. Puedo decir que son paralelas. Okay, let's do C and we're done with our foldable. It says that y equals negative 2x plus 6 for my line. Let's identify my slope. It's in front. Oops, I need my highlighter. It's in front of x, so it's negative 2. For the second line, it's negative 1 over 2. Now, I could almost say that they are perpendicular because of the fraction, right? We have a solid 2, and we have 1 as a fraction, 1 over 2. They have the same sign, and so because they have the same sign and they don't have opposite signs, I can't say that they're parallel, or I can't say that they are perpendicular, okay? So for parallel, for this to be parallel, remember they have to have same slope, and they don't. It's different slope, so they're not parallel. Maybe they could be perpendicular. Remember, there are two different things that have to happen. They have to have opposite signs, and they don't. Both of them are negative. So the first part is not satisfied. They're not perpendicular either. Okay, so if they're not parallel, they're not perpendicular. The other option that they gave me was to say neither. And that's what I'm going to say here. So C is neither. Remember, for perpendicular, you have to have both things. Opposite signs, the flip of the fraction. Okay, and because the signs were the same, okay, and not opposite signs, they're not perpendicular. Just be very careful for that part. Okay, you have homework. Go ahead and get started, and good luck.